Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, did you know there's a skill many men never learn that ends up seriously limiting your professional success and satisfaction in your love and sex life? I put together a free guide to explain this unknown skill and give you exactly what you need to use it today. Get it by heading over to ShaynaJamesCoaching.com or text the word ALIVE, A-L-I-V-E, to 44144. That's 44144. You'll also get access to Man Alive outtakes, raw footage, and bonus videos you can only get there. Welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I'm thrilled to be here today with Ocean Robbins. Ocean, welcome.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be with you too.
Thank you. So Ocean and I were discussing what we would talk about, and Ocean has been a colleague and a friend of mine for many years. And I see, Ocean, one of your particular geniuses is how deeply you think, you feel, how connected you are to, for lack of a better word in this moment, I'm going to say the spirit realm, or, you know, that you actually have a view and a vision that you are and want to support people to be a steward of our planet, of our people, of community. And it's a view that I would say many people, for whatever reason, whether they're too busy and too consumed with survival or family or whatever, a lot of people don't have that elevated or, you know, kind of aerial view, I would say. So first of all, I want to thank you for holding that view. And second of all, I would like to help, you know, tap into that view and bring it to men so that men can actually figure out, okay, how do I not only do all the things that feel required of me, right? But how do I have a bigger impact? How do I have a bigger vision in my life? How do I stay connected to, you know, this deeper purpose in life?
Well, these are big questions.
Yeah.
It's my view that every human being comes to Earth for some kind of a purpose. That we have a reason that we took birth. Yeah. And tragically, a lot of people, I think, never actually discover what that is. But there's the saying that the two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you discover why you were born. And
I love that you're starting here. Thank you. This is already very deep.
Yeah. And I think that many of us are on the quest to discover why we were born.
Yeah.
And then to be true to that.
Yeah.
And sometimes we discover it, or we have an epiphany or a sense of it, and then we forget, or we try to integrate it, and then we get lost in the details, so to speak.
Right.
And there are a lot of details.
There are a lot of details to handle.
But for many people, it seems that the activities of daily living and what we have to do to survive in this world can feel antithetical to or distracting from that sense of deeper purpose.
Yes.
For example, most of us live in a world where we have to make money to survive and pay the bills and stay afloat. And in many cases, we're stuck doing things for that money that aren't our full values, that aren't expressions of our creative genius, that aren't expressions of everything we love, or that involve some degree of compromise, whether it's total or partial. And I think in that context, it becomes a Herculean task sometimes, not only to know what we're really here for, but to stay congruent with it. Yeah. But I would like to suggest that part of what we're here for involves the details, involves trying to live in the world and function in the world in a way that is, as much as possible, an expression of our values.
Yes.
So even if you're doing a job, you know, for someone who's working at a fast food restaurant, like flipping burgers all day, you can still greet people with a smile. You can still handle food with love. You can still bring beauty to what you do. And
I love how you're bringing this bigger vision into every moment. I'm also just realizing I didn't read your bio. So I'm, at some point we'll introduce you, but I love that you're bringing this bigger vision, bigger purpose into, right, that how you even interact with one person, or how you do your job, that actually makes a huge difference in life. It doesn't have to just live on this aerial um, realm, or this theoretical realm. Like, it does come down to the moment to moment interactions and how you
That's
do what you
right.
do.
That's right. And it's my perspective that that men in particular have a unique challenge and opportunity in
Mm.
this, because it's my perspective that it is part of the masculine archetype
Mm-hmm.
that we are stewards for the community.
Interesting.
That, in many indigenous tribes, men go out and hunt for the tribe. Men are also responsible for protecting the tribe in certain
Uh-huh.
ways.
Uh-huh.
And I think there is a very deep instinct in the masculine psyche that wants to care for, provide for, protect the people we love and care about, our
Yeah.
family, our community. And my perspective is that today, that we are often confused
Uh-huh.
about who it and what it is we're protecting. Is it our faith? Is it our company? Is it our politics? Is it
Right.
our nuclear family? But many of our nuclear families are complicated.
Right.
They involve many different people, and so in this context, I think the historical donation rule was very simple. You had a tribe, or you had some specific clan, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally broken open now, and I think that as humans, and particularly as masculine humans, men in this context have a particular challenge, which is, how do we respond to the crises of our planet? How do we respond to the fact that
Right.
human beings, our species, is destroying ecosystems, is
Yeah.
threatening the viability of future generations to even have a livable world?
Yeah.
Is
Well, and can we slow it down too a little bit? Because
Yeah,
I'm thinking, like, how do you? One thing I see as I work with men, right, is that a lot of men come to me and they would like to have attention on this, but they're kind of putting out fires, right? Or a lot of men are very generously, I would think, providing for family, protecting family, participating in community, or doing their work in the world, kind of checking those boxes in a way, but then also losing themselves, or losing um, the ability to receive and have a deeper, more meaningful life as well. So I guess two questions, how do you have a suggestion for how men stay connected to this bigger vision, but also more deeply to themselves, so that they're not being a steward, but then losing themselves in the process, and then eventually, ending up feeling like they're dying inside? I'm curious your perspective on that.
yeah. Well, for me, my experience is that when I perceive my life to be about something bigger than
Yes.
self me, then I have a potency and a power that comes into me that's bigger than small self me.
Great, great. Okay. I was hoping you were going to go there.
My experience is that I think one of our basic human needs is to feel like we're part of something bigger than ourselves,
Yes.
a community, a purpose, a calling. And that gives our life a sense of meaning.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the most toxic lies of our times is that we are isolated, narcissistic, selfish consumers who are only interested in number one in a dog eat dog world.
Yeah.
And I would remind us that dogs don't eat dogs. And
That's a good point.
I would remind us that it is actually, I think, part of the human condition to care.
Yeah.
94% of Americans believe that animals raised for food, if they're going to be raised for food, should be treated with respect and free from cruelty.
Wow.
90% of Americans would be willing to pay more for food that was ethically sourced.
Yeah. And I think, right, you're saying it's like I think a couple things come into play when men do have that feeling of being isolated, being lonely, not feeling cared about or supported. Part of what I'm seeing in there, right, is this often what I do with men when they're wanting some of that, or wanting to be understood or cared for, is to give in the world what they most want to receive. And that tends to kickstart this cycle, right? Oh, if I want care and I actually start caring for people, then I start to feel connected to people. I start to feel connected to something bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that happen so many times.
Well, I mean, it's one of the golden rule in a sense. One interpretation of it is, if you want love, give love.
Right.
You know, if you want caring, give caring, and it does create a sense of reciprocity in the universe. In the work that I do, one of the cornerstones of it is that we always want to give before we take, or before we ask for anything. And so we form a lot of partnerships with affiliate partners, and we're always looking at how can we support each other. A rising tide lifts all boats, not just my boat, you know? And that's the vision I have for the kind of economy that I would like to see in the world. And it's also, I think, what I want to create for my own personal life. And so my feeling is that when we feel that our lives are not part of the solution, they're not serving or contributing to something bigger, there is a self-hate, there is a level of cynicism, there is a kind of giving up in which we lose an essential part of ourselves. And most of us, probably all of us to one extent or another, are facing that. Because, you know, in a way, we all have blood on our hands. Like, in a way, we're all part of systems and institutions that are involved in exploitation of children, you know, and torture of animals and desecration of our planet, our climate. And so there's a heartbreak to that. And I want to just give a moment to recognize that. Like, we don't have to gloss it over. We can recognize that we all hurt with the fact that not only that these violations are part of the human experience, but that we are participants in them in some way.
Right. And not to necessarily blame or shame ourselves. Right.
It's not about blame or shame. It's about compassion and empathy.
Exactly.
And from there, then we recognize everyone is part of that.
Right.
You know, we're humans, and, you know, we all have light and dark in us. And the question I think that helps to define us is, what do we do with what's given to us? And so we're given a society and a species that is beautiful and brilliant and loving and generous, and that's also capable of a lot of harm. And we as humans, and those of us who are masculine, are given an opportunity, I think, to take our place in relationship to that in the most conscious way that we can. And what I, for one, want to do is to bring as much love and as much compassion and as much consciousness as I can to the choices that I make. And I find that when I view my life as a part of the commons, as a part of something bigger than just me, then there is a power that comes through me. That is born, I think, of the survival urge of our species itself. That there is an instinct embedded in the human DNA that wants to live, and that wants to love, and that wants to serve. And we get to be part of that, and our life becomes more powerful than we maybe could have ever imagined.
Well, right. And it's interesting calling it the survival instinct, because there is something in a way about the survival, but there's also something about, you know, some people use the word thrival, right? But there's something about this, not just surviving, but maybe it is, right? This is funny. It's kind of collapsing in on itself. I was going to say not just surviving, but surviving in a way where, you know, there is more peace, there is more connection, but in a way we can't actually survive unless that happens. So I was thinking of them as these counter points to each other, right? Surviving and thriving. But at this point, I feel like it's come down to, you know, without thriving or without attention on how to stop this exploitation, we're not going to survive.
I think that's where we're at. And I don't think we can thrive if we're not surviving either.
Right. Which is part of the conflict, though. I think that so many people, like you said, there's so much attention that has been needed to go toward, I mean, I think about Charles Eisenstein, and there's many people talking about this, including you. So there are different ways to create culture, but in the culture that we have been born into, or some of us continue to create, maybe we all continue to create it, there is a lot of attention on how do we make money and how do we forward our career and our lives. So I think it is a big challenge for a lot of people, and men especially, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I think that in general, men have more self-image, identity, and ego tied up with sort of financial sufficiency
Mm-hmm.
and provider
Mm-hmm.
energy. I'm not saying that women don't.
Right.
I'm
No.
saying that in general, my experience is I know a lot of masculine folks who, feel like they want to be a provider for their family, and they feel confident and comfortable when they are, and it's harder when they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right. And masculine
we
could be
actually
like you're
call our
saying.
net worth. We actually have the phrase net worth, as if that's what you're worth.
Right.
Is how much money you have in the bank, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is a bigger term for male identity in general.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to suggest is that we unpack societal conditioning from our own authentic value system.
I love that.
Like you may be, if you're a man listening right now, you may want to make money, and you may want to provide for your family, and those may be your authentic true selves. But I also know plenty of men for whom, when they get right down to it, that's a conditioning they inherited, but they don't actually want to do that.
Right.
Like
So to be able to really look at what is the conditioning you inherited,
right?
What are you actually doing? How are you actually spending your time? Now, they may not negate each other, right? There may be some of both in there, and that's where it can get a little confusing also. But how powerful that is to actually look at what am I doing out of my conditioning, and what am I actually doing out of my, I don't know, what would you call it? Would you say a deeper desire? Or would you say a kind of an impetus toward
your purpose, the purpose for which you took birth would be the core of it.
Right. To go back to where you started.
And then like your authentic desires would be another way to look at it. What is it that brings us alive? What is it that feels like resonant to us? And, obviously all of our ecosystems, psyches, habit patterning, ways of thinking have been shaped and influenced by our society, by our conditioning, by our families. We learn to talk. Our very language structure itself was modeled after the people we heard talking around us growing up, most likely our parents. And so that informs us, but it doesn't define us.
Right.
You still get to be the author of the words you use. You have the ability even to learn new languages if you wish. And so we all inherit also ways of thinking about money and humanity and masculinity and who we are. And then we get to some extent, become conscious of those impacts and make the wisest choices we can about what do we want to take on and what do we want to release. Yeah. And it's my perspective that there is a particular thought form out there about masculine identity around money that is particularly toxic, which is the belief that more is better, and that your success as a man is measured in the dollars in your bank account, and that your contribution to the community is measured by your monetary success. And what I want to say is that I think that providing for and caring for and nurturing and being responsible to your family and community may be a very beautiful part of what you want to claim as as your masculine identity. Yes. And you don't have to let society's judgments and opinions define you.
Right. Or define what that looks like.
Right. And you may be an absolutely whole and complete and fabulous human being because you're making yourself rich by making your wants few. You might be a complete provider because you're growing food and none of it even turns into money because you're in a gift economy. There are a lot of different ways to live and serve and contribute and provide and care.
Yes.
And I want to invite each of us to decide on what terms do we want to measure our success. And there is a tyranny in our inherited culture, I believe, which is this belief that no matter how hard we try, it's never good enough. There's this kind of cruel self-judgment that I know I have, and I think a lot of people carry. And I am working to uproot that, or bring love to that, really, actually, in my experience, and to ask for support in finding the freedom from false and unrealistic expectations. Yeah. Well, so that I can love who I am for doing what I can with what I've got.
Yes. And so this is what happens always. Every time I hear you speak, it's like you're channeling and everything is going so fast and there's so much and there's so deep. I feel like if we stopped right here and men just really considered some of these questions, right? Like, how am I doing what I've been conditioned or expected to do versus what my authentic desires are? How do I define my own success? What are the toxic beliefs around money that I have taken on?
Yeah.
How am I actually really recognizing my own worth beyond my net worth? Some of these pieces I'm just double clicking on, right? Because I think
Yeah.
words just flow out of you that are so deep and impactful. I think, I don't even know if you realize that sometimes, but how deep it goes. So I think I just wanted to slow down for a minute and really say to you listening, and I'll put some of these questions too in the bullets or in the notes so you can actually keep asking yourself these questions, because like you said, in the beginning, or one of us said, I can't remember, but people don't necessarily always get to a place where they ask themselves these questions, right?
Yeah.
And some people, like you in particular, I think were born almost asking these questions already, like from the time you
Right.
speak, it feels like this is what comes through you. And other
Yeah.
people awaken to this a lot later in life. So, right, I just, to be asking these questions changes how you do life, what happens in life, how you contribute, and what you also receive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a very deep level on which the questions we ask define, of course, the answers we get, and also what we become.
Yes.
And I'm interested in asking questions like, what does integrity for me in this situation? How do I be congruent with my values now? And what I want to, and how can I define my values in ways that are like at once unassailably pristine? Like I don't want to compromise on what I really know is right for the sake of convenience. And yet at the same time, to root that all the way down to what's practical and implementable and doable in the context of the world I live in.
Wow.
So
that seems like a skill to be able to actually do both at the same time.
Just define how that translates for me for a moment. So
great.
Pristine values might be things like I value love, I value respect. I want all beings to be treated well, right? I want all beings, and I want everyone to be. I run a company, so I want everybody to be rewarded financially for the degree of the contribution they make.
Yes.
And then I also live in a context where, as the owner of a company, I might make a lot more than other employees in the company who are working very hard also on a good year. On a bad year, I might make a lot less, right? But on a good year, when I'm making more, there's a way that conflicts with values I hold, that every human being should be treated equally. I buy strawberries, and I know that farm workers were paid $10 an hour working 15-hour days to pick those strawberries, and I still appreciate a good price on my strawberries, and yet I am aware that comes at an impact.
And so what do you do about that then?
So I want to be aware. I want to be conscious. Yeah. And then when I can afford it, I'm going to buy the fair trade or the organic or the strawberries from the local farm that's unionized or farmers market strawberries because I feel better about that.
Yep.
But I'm also going to choose organic as much as possible. But I'm also aware that berries are really healthy and life-giving, and that they help fight Alzheimer's, and that they help fight cancer. And I want to eat berries. And if I can't afford the organic, fair trade, local strawberries, and I need to go with something frozen, I'm still going to value my health and choose to eat berries. So it's a question of doing the best we can, but we can't make the perfect into the enemy of the good. Right. When we make, so I want to be aware of the impact and make the best choices I can and the most responsible choices I can. And at the end of the day, I also live in the real world. And I know that we have to put our own oxygen mask on first. Yeah.
Can you give another, I like that example. Can you give another concrete example? Because I want to just keep this in the realm of, okay, how can we apply this? So you've got your values, right? How do you apply it practically?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think one of the big ones that comes up is time. Like most of us, I think, struggle with time. And we all have the same 24 hours in the day that everyone else does, but somehow it never feels like enough. Yep. And, between family and work and self-care and sleep and, and having some fun now and then, like it just doesn't feel like there's enough time for everything for most human beings in the modern world. And so in that context, I value time with my family. I value time with my kids who are 16 years old. I value time with my wife. I value time for self-care. I value my work. I want to do it all.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I have to make choices.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes those choices involve disappointing people
Yeah.
or not doing things I would have loved to do. Now, here's the thing. When I say no to something,
Mm-hmm.
I'm also saying yes to something.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I want to be saying yes to is freedom. Freedom from the
Because
tyranny
that's one of your values.
Right. Well, freedom from the tyranny of unrealistic expectations.
Okay.
Freedom from the feeling that I am failing or guilt that I'm not doing good enough with something that I didn't choose to do.
Uh-huh.
And so one of the ways that the rubber meets the road for me is I have a pristine value of doing everything that I love and care about.
Uh-huh.
I also have a value of using my time efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, what I want to do is that when I don't do something, I make that a conscious choice, not a slippery slope. And
so you're aware, right?
I'm aware.
It's important to you to be aware of the choices you're making. And
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't want to leave energy behind in that choice.
So say more. What does that mean?
If I'm not going to take time to do a project that people in my company might want me to do, and I'm like, you know what, I don't have the time for this right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that, and I'll communicate that clearly, and then I'll move on, and I'm not going to carry guilt about it the rest of the day. Because I know that I did the best I could with what I had. So I think that we need to, there's a lot of people who are constantly telling themselves, I don't have enough time.
Yes.
I don't have enough money.
Yes.
And that message itself saps time and energy and a sense of abundance in your life.
To tell yourself that you don't have the time or you don't have the money.
Right. What if you have exactly the amount of time or exactly the amount of money you need to do what you're here for and what is most important to you today?
Right. Which goes back to then, right, what is that? And actually knowing what that is instead of chasing some other, goal or expectation laid out by our culture or your parents or anyone else.
Exactly. And, I would say that, that one of my daily prayers that I ask for every morning is, may I be given everything I need to do what I'm here for.
It's so interesting. That's a challenging one I could see sometimes for myself and for other people, right? Where it's like, oh, I have big visions in the world.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't feel like I'm given enough time, energy, money to make those happen. But so for me, I think as I walk away from this, I'd like to start exploring that. And your question was, well, what if I do have the time, energy, and money to make that happen, to make things happen? Or what if as I get clearer and clearer about it, maybe there is a next step to take or a next question to ask? I don't know.
Let me take it a step further.
Okay,
when I ask, may I be given everything I need to do what I'm here for? It is my unassailable belief. That's like a bedrock for the foundations of my life, that I am given everything I need to do what I'm here for, including the boundaries and the blocks and the crises and the pain and the insufficiencies.
Yeah.
So
wow.
If I have a financial shortfall, then that is a part of what I need to do what I'm here for.
Right. So again, this goes back, this is all under the context of I'm here for something or some things. There's a bigger picture than likely if I'm not seeing it your way, right? Let's say there's a bigger picture that I may not be tapped into or understanding.
Right. Like, let me get granular about the financial shortfall for a second.
Yeah.
In 2008, my family lost our life savings in the Madoff scandal. It was a time when the economy was kind of falling apart in general. But my dad was a best-selling author. He built a certain nest egg. We were counting on that to kind of be there for our kids when we passed on.
Yep.
And in 2008, it all evaporated overnight.
Wow.
Suddenly, my parents were struggling to just keep up with the mortgage and not knowing how they were going to survive. And we had lost all of our savings, and my wife and I as well. So, so that seems like kind of a bad thing to happen, right?
Right. All right. No, I love this that you're actually, I'm not loving that this happened, but knowing you, I understand why it happened, but thank you for getting so vulnerable and actually, where the rubber meets the road and being honest about this.
Sure. So out of that, I had been working at a nonprofit organization for 20 years. I loved the work we were doing. It was satisfying, but it was limited.
Mm-hmm.
And it certainly wasn't going to build a nest egg to care for our kids long term. And we have special needs twins.
Yep.
So out of that, I wound up moving on from the nonprofit, stepping into the unknown, and in time founding the Food Revolution Network.
Right.
Which is now
has
500,000 members, and is a thriving company, and is building a real nest egg to support our family, and is making a far bigger impact on the planet than I was making in 2008.
Yes.
And I don't think have taken that step if not for the financial crisis that compelled me to reinvent my life.
Yes.
And I wouldn't wish that kind of crisis on anybody. But I do want to say that sometimes blessings come in funny packages.
Totally, right? We wouldn't wish in a way you wouldn't wish that on someone, but maybe at this point, maybe you would, right? Wish that someone could have that eye-opening, awakening experience.
Right. And what I want to suggest is that the blessing wasn't the Madoff scandal. It was that which emerged in me in response to it.
Right.
And I think that in every crisis and pain and struggle that we face, there is a response available to us, a best we can do with what's given.
Yes.
And that's part of what defines us as human beings.
Yeah.
And I know so many people, some of the most inspiring stories in the world are people who have faced unbearable hardships and made something beautiful out of it.
Right. Exactly.
And that like inspires something in all of us because we all know what that's like.
Yeah.
And so when we come back to like, what am I on earth for? Like maybe somehow, some way it's our heartbreaks, our tragedies, our breakdowns, every bit as much as our blessings and gifts that help to bring forth in us our response that enables us to really do what we're here for. Yes.
Yes. That feels like a really powerful place to end. Again, we could keep going for days and hours, but right. Part of me is tempted to ask you, if there's any last thing you want to say, but I feel like you've said so much that I want it to actually land. So maybe just even reiterating that last piece, or any last thoughts or inspirations or anything coming through you about this last piece of, that our response to the heartbreaks, the hardships often creates actually something, profound and beautiful in one's life.
Well, I want to just also add the suggestion that part of the heartbreak we all face is personal. Every one of us has known levels of pain and suffering that no human being should ever have to go through.
Yeah.
Whether it's direct trauma we've faced, whether it's family breakups, whether it's violence, whether it's all kinds of abuses we've experienced, that loved ones have experienced. We've all felt that, right?
Yeah.
We're also part of something collective, where we are witness and participants in a species that can't be sure of its very survival because of the choices that we're making right now. Yeah. And in that context, we all have plenty of cause for sadness.
Yeah.
And I want to hold the heart that hurts with all of that with so much tenderness and care. And I also want to say that we all have within us some innate, some native response that can learn from our history without having to repeat it. And that can be part of the evolutionary impulse that is inherent in us and in our species.
Yeah.
And when we are in conscious relationship with the world as it is, I believe we can be informed by our life experiences in ways that enable us to grow. When we are in denial or disconnection, then we are more likely to repeat the patterns that have gone on before us.
Yes.
So I believe that from consciousness and comes traction, comes growth, comes evolution, and it is that. So I am both wanting to be a champion for awareness of what's so and love of what's so, because I don't think we can really be aware of what's so if we're in opposition to it. And also the evolutionary impulse that says something more can be. Yeah. And
thank you for being a reminder of that, for all of us. And I've seen you speak in, rooms of hundreds of people and, technology webinars online for, like you said, 500,000 people. And you continue to bring that message through everything you do, which I think it's so beautiful, right? Not only do you have the food revolution, and that's a concrete way you're serving, but you're also serving with your vision and with reminding us of this evolutionary impulse and our ability to respond, that no matter what the heartache or the heartbreak, personally or collectively, we actually do have the ability to respond in a way that creates more beauty, more connection, more love, more peace in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope it gives you a sense of what's possible and how good your life can be. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe to Man Alive and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/manalive to get outtakes, videos, and raw footage I only share there. These are some of the most interesting parts of these expert conversations. You can also grab your copy of The Unknown Power to accelerate your career and solidify your confidence with women, because the two are related, and I know you don't have to settle for one or the other. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.